Hello, YouTube. This is a most unusual phenomenon, and despite statements in the Russian media, entirely not new. I will present most interesting cases and also some ideas. Let me start with the Ural Mountains, the setting of so much paranormal Russian phenomena, as you know from my videos on the subject. Dmitry Volobuyev was a leader of the Russian paranormal research organization Ural Station, but I have not heard about his work since 2008. I, at that time, returned from Yucatan, where I had investigated local paranormal lore and cryptozoology to the extent possible. And coming back, I looked at my Russian materials to find out if there was anything else about the horrifying creature that roamed the Urals a few years before. But I never learned more than what I'm about to tell you about Orenburg area. And this episode started in 2005, actually. Orenburg, it's a city in Russia located in the southern Urals at the junction of Europe and Asia, about 1,455 kilometers southeast of Moscow, if you're interested and ever go there. The city is the administrative center of Orenburg Oblast or region. So in the Orenburg region, a creature unknown to science has shown great interest in farm animals. No one has seen how it hunts, but local farmers will remember the consequences of its appearance for a long time. The unknown beast was nicknamed Chupacabra by analogy with the American phenomenon Chupacabras, which means sucking the blood of goats. Yes, goats suffer the most. This is a real scourge for farmers, which had spread to other areas of Russia. The events developed in the Saraktashsky district of the Orenburg region. They began at the end of March 2005 when someone expertly killed 32 adult turkeys on a remote Saperka farm. Their bodies have lost a significant amount of blood. Attacks were also recorded in the village of Gavrilovka, which is near Saraktash. The local evildoer was named by people conditionally as Barabashka, or Goblin. A little later, the predator appeared in the village of Vodvizhenka and in the nearby village of Shishma. At first, barbaric raids were quite rare, but in the early May, they became more frequent. In the center of the village and on the inhabited outskirts, 2 or 3 sheep from one yard were destroyed every night. In total, about 3,000 sheep died, not counting the missing. Moreover, horses, cows, and other large domestic animals remained untouched by that silent killer. Moreover, they never showed signs of excitement, so to say. Local residents began to be afraid to go out late at night. The fear was fueled by the unexpected loss of livestock. Some brave farmers decided to be on duty at night to ambush and catch this creature that terrified the neighborhood. Once, by the light of hanging lanterns, it was possible to notice this mysterious creature for the first time. A young guy guarding the sheep pen jumped out of his trailer at night when the sheep began to yell discontentedly. Running closer to them, the guy noticed a black shape that immediately moved away. It had the dimensions of a large dog and moved quickly but unevenly, with long jumps as if its front paws were shorter than the hind ones. The beast disappeared into a narrow opening between the fence boards, deftly squeaking and squeezing in there in an incomprehensible way. Another incident in which the Chupacabra showed its appearance happened on June 9. Yerbulat Izbasov, who was not closing his eyes at night, heard a noise in the paddock. When he ran out to see what was going on there, he saw the predictable picture. The ram was lying half dead in the corner, and the calf was clinging to the wall of the pen in fear. At the same moment, the silhouette of a strange creature resembling a large dog appeared in front of the owner. Darting towards the fence, behind which there was a backyard, the Chupacabra easily overcame it with a high jump and then disappeared into the darkness. According to the eyewitness, the size of the creature was about 1.2 meters, and there was a kind of a hump on the back. Wasting no time, the injured owner ran up to the still warm ram and slashed at the throat with a knife to release the blood and save the meat. But not a drop of blood fell to the ground. There was bite wounds on the sides. Both ears were torn. Soon a whole pack of similar creatures came to the same yard. One chupacabra was reddish in color, the other one was dark gray. The one with the gray was leading a litter of puppies. The owner's dog got out of the kennel and wanted to bark, but the chupacabra growled first. The dog whined, tucked its tail between its legs, and ran away. Yerbulat could not stand it. He threw a stick at the uninvited guests and shouted. So they had scattered. When examining the carcass of the sheep, the farmer noticed a couple of holes on the neck similar to a bullet wound. These cuts, made with surgical precision, penetrated deep enough into the throat. Under the skin, the flesh was slashed as if with a metal brush, and most interestingly, the meat turned out to be whitish, and it turned out black around the cuts, possibly due to an injected acidic enzyme that dilutes blood at a strong concentration. From what he saw, Yerbulat did not risk his health. Having packed the carcass in a bag, he took it to the animal burial ground. Deep marks from 4 claws were found on the wide horizontally fixed upper board of the pen after the attack. Even a tuft of wool remained on the sash. The height of the ground is about 1.5 meters. The door, made of vertical metal fittings, was curved towards the street. People were perplexed. What kind of strength do you need to have to bend a dense reinforcement with a blow or a push? A local policeman and a veterinarian went to the scene in the first hours when it happened. By their order, the bodies of poor animals were immediately packed and thrown into a special pit covered with slabs from above. The veterinarian Mergen Tasvaev assured that ordinary wolves or local dogs were responsible for the loss of livestock. Only very smart and cunning dogs. However, farmers were not satisfied with such an ordinary explanation. Predatory animals never abandon their prey. If they hunt, they eat the victim completely on the spot, or drag it into their burrows, secluded shelters. This is how any predator behaves in nature. In addition, the old-timers do not recall that something similar had happened in Vozdvizhenka and other nearby villages before. Mass slaughter was theirs to experience for the first time, and it's hard to imagine a pack of wolves walking around in the center of a village. For some reason, the local policeman supported the veterinarian's account, also ignoring the blatant oddities. Terror was committed exclusively at night. The carcasses were not torn or disheveled. In all cases, the larynx was cut neatly as if with a knife. Most of the victims had virtually no blood left. The holes from which it was sucked are up to 5 millimeters in diameter and up to several centimeters deep. There were no signs of rigor mortis, but other animals refused to approach the bodies. The chief expert of the Department of the Hunting Supervision in the Orenburg region, Zufar Faizulin, supplemented the opinion of the veterinarian. Most likely the mother wolf taught the puppies to hunt, demonstrating her skill to them. If they lead a nocturnal lifestyle, they are forced to wander, returning after some time to the village. Perhaps this is even a hybrid of a feral dog and a wolf. In May, stray dogs were shot, but this did not help. The attacks continued. Vasily Nechayev, an expert of the hunting supervision in the Saraktash district, who is familiar with the habits of predators firsthand, was extremely skeptical about the arguments in favor of training cubs. A wolf, in his opinion, cannot breed puppies far away in the spring and early summer because it's too early yet. Moreover, it will not lead these cubs through the villages, exposing them to mortal danger there. In the vicinity of Vozdvizhenka, by the way, there is not a single wolf's lair. Nechayev checked it himself. And wolves do not suck blood through small holes. They do not suck it out at all because their mouth is not designed for this. Therefore, there is no sign of wolves here. In addition to the Orenburg region, the Orenburg Sudarina newspaper and the regional Oren TV channel participated in the information race. The latter conducted a small investigation which resulted in a report where the devilry was compared with the events on the American continent. In order to prevent the undesirable spread of rumors far beyond Orenburg, representatives of the district administration publicly declared the TV channel to be incompetent on this issue and also strictly prohibited any disclosure of information and giving interviews to those who would be interested in what is happening. Surprising, isn't it? Anyway, after that, notes were sent to the local or instructions local press as if the mythical Chupacabra had nothing to do with it, and the killers should be looked for among local predators. The opposition of the authorities to what was happening was in full swing. It was the month of June by then. After a brief lull, some time has passed, the vampire resumed his hunt. This time the victims were chickens. Countless heads died. There were all the same strange features of extermination. Then the activity of the Chupacabra gradually began to decrease. The last attack dates back to the third decade of July when a sheep died. There are no other sheep left in the village by that time. In September, the Orenburg resident Dmitry Madinovsky rafted on the boat on the Sakmara River in the company of his friends from the village of Kondorovka to the village of Zholtaya, and so being 30 to 40 kilometers from Vozdvizhenka in the upper reaches of the current, he noticed 2 rows of footprints leading into the water on the sandy shore. The rafters moored to the shore and examined the very fresh tracks for their similarity to known animals. Subsequently, even experienced hunters and zoologists from the Institute could not determine their relation to at least some of the well-known individual that lives not only on the territory of the forest steppe zone. Judging by the depth of the prints, the creature weighed 30 to 35 kilograms. The human foot sank deeper into the wet sand. The claws on its 5-toed paw reached 2 centimeters. The webbing between the widely spaced fingers toes could be guessed. There was a trail of a tail behind it. Dmitry imagined the Chupacabra to be with small front paws but rather large hind ones, the size of a palm, which first walked on 4 legs, stood on its hind legs by the water, lifting its long tail, and then jumped like a kangaroo. The distance between the jumps was 1 to 1.2 meters. It is natural that the specific features of the Saraktash monsters correspond to the descriptions of the Puerto Rican Chupacabra. The same gait, the same habits, except that only the appearance does not match a little because of the environmental conditions. Russian differs in the number of fingers, the presence of a tail, and wool. Like the Russians, the West is also lost in guesses. Who are these creatures? Where do they come from? Why do they suddenly appear and then just as suddenly disappear? Undoubtedly, we're dealing with an unusual kind of carnivorous animal, yet unknown to science. It is unknown where the Russian Chupacabra will appear next time, and this means in any rural area you can expect the appearance of dead, bloodless animals, and you will see later. Back in 2006, there was a plan concocted at the next attack of the mysterious creature. Representatives of the Ural Anomaly Monitoring Station with Dmitry Madinovsky and Volobuyev among them were ready to certainly organize an expedition outfitted with modern equipment. The search was to be conducted with bait for live bait. No more news came from the Urals, but there are other materials I have collected through the decades of research. Let me share some of them with you. The Chupacabra has been seen for at least 60 years in different parts of Russia. The Chupacabra in Chelyabinsk, Saratov, and the Tula region was often encountered by people. Everyone's stories are different, and even the description of the animal is different. Many stories were simply told to friends over tea or something stronger, never having published them anywhere. Here is something from a prospective Russian woman who had her experiences. Unfortunately, I do not have her name, but I think we should hear what she had to say years ago. At first, she talked about Chupacabra in the Lipetsk region. The story of her neighbor, it was taking place in the 1950s. And the neighbor lived in the village, as often happened. The only school was a few kilometers away. The narrator, the woman who lived in the 1950s, had to go to school through the fields with winter rye or by roundabout ways, which was longer. At the end of spring, the years grew very high above the height of the child. So it was at this time of the year, on the way to school, that the neighbor noticed a completely incomprehensible animal. When it poked out of the ears, it looked like a kangaroo, moved just like a kangaroo in leaps. The neighbor at that time was studying in the 5th grade and understood that kangaroos do not live in their latitudes. There are no kangaroos in Russia. Which scared her terribly. She ran to school and, not daring to look back, heard the crunch of ears bent by a creepy animal rushing after her. Jumping out from behind the last thicket, she looked back and saw that the monster again stuck its head out and looked at her standing on its hind legs. And then the neighbor did not look back and with a wild cry rushed towards the schoolyard. She didn't go through those fields anymore. The narrator added that for some reason she had been waiting to encounter the creature all the time. In 2014, she shared the following. It happened actually 20 years prior to that, so that will be 1994. She said that she can't forget, and even now goosebumps run down her back when she remembers it. This was the encounter with Chupacabra in the Volgograd region. This was during the days of the narrator's youth. She and friends decided to go into nature to set up a tent camp. They chose a place away from the city, 40 kilometers away. A very beautiful lake with aspens on the shore. They settled down, lit a fire, put up a tent. Closer to the nighttime, her husband and a friend went to the spring for water, and she stayed at the camp with her friends. As it got quite dark, the narrator saw that something was running down the hill towards their camp. From a distance, the animal looked like a strange dog. And of course, she immediately felt this is not a simple dog, but something otherworldly. When the creature approached, she noticed that it was moving strangely, jumping, but very smoothly. Not one animal on planet Earth moves like that. This ghostly creature, the color of the moon, seemed to flicker. The narrator tried to scare it away so that it would not approach the tents. But the animal could not be frightened by anything, neither by a fire nor by the clanking of the metal. It ran down the hill, and every time it emerged from the darkness and tried to get close, already from the side of the lake. and she heard how the Chupacabra splashed along the shore. This creature resembled several different types of animals at the same time: a dog, a kangaroo, a lizard, a hyena. And when it tried to crawl up to the fire, it was clear that the creature's head was oblong, it was elongated. The mysterious animal seemed to change shape and appearance all the time. The narrator spent 2 hours going around the tents, in one of which was a small child, the son of her friend, was sleeping, and she was afraid that it would get that creature to the baby. As soon as the voice of her husband and his friend were heard from afar, the creature disappeared, hearing the voices of men returning to the camp. Her husband just laughed at the narrator, and her friends did not believe that they saw the Chupacabra. Calmed down a little, they all went to bed. But in the morning, when they woke up, her husband was not laughing. The meat for the barbecue was gone. They found the package just over the hill, far from the camp, naturally empty, and it was not torn, but simply untied. And the kebab left on the skewers was also eaten. The narrator had to go home, and she wasn't ready to go through such horror again. The risk wasn't worth it. These two stories of the collision with a mystical animal named Chupacabra made the narrator once again make sure that the unknown is closer than it sometimes seems to us. Of all the stories described on the internet, told by eyewitnesses, one conclusion is that the Chupacabra does not have a specific appearance and the animal can change, but prefers the appearance of a kangaroo, hyena, less often an amphibian, lizard, and some people say even a dinosaur. The size of the creature is also different, from 60 centimeters to 2.5 meters, but more often it is the same, 1.5 meters. And it can live anywhere, in different countries and cities. It is more common in places with abnormal activity or warfare, because I have a story that I will tell you much later that took place at the beginning, basically, of World War II in Russia. It is clear for sure only one thing, that this creature, not from our world, has intelligence, contacts people only out of curiosity. Chupacabra is often attracted to people who have a connection with the so-called subtle world. And the narrator, that woman, was sure that this is not a fairy tale or fiction. The Chupacabra exists, and it is up to you to believe it or not. I think if she heard the story from the beginning of World War II, I don't want to say she would be more scared, but she would definitely be confirmed in her beliefs. But now let's look at other reports. Neither in Latin America, where the mysterious stories about the Chupacabra came from, nor in the USSR and then Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, its existence has not been officially proven or refuted. There are no clear photo or video images of the creature, but there are some photos you will see in my video. But after all, it has not been possible to catch abominable snowman Yeti as yet, although few people nowadays doubt the existence of the Yeti. And then, in early 1990s in Russia, there were numerous eyewitness accounts that saw the beast, faced with the consequences of its hunting in the vastness of the 1/6 of the planet Earth. This is how large Russia is. There were legends about the Chupacabra across the ocean before. Residents of remote settlements in the tropical jungle knew what rules to follow in the forest so as not to get into trouble. And the information breakthrough occurred when the creature, so to speak, went into the world and pets began to become its victims. By the way, I heard interesting reports in Yucatan too, at the town of Tikul in April of 2008. There was an attack on lambs. But let's come back to Russia. Well, in Russia, a country with rich pagan roots, there have been always enough forest dwellers and monsters of their own. It is enough to recall the serpent Gorinich, Zmei Gorinich, wasn't. They look like the late descendant of dinosaurs. Look, we'll discuss this strange creature of Russian lore in other videos. And during the 1990s in the country, there was just time when the themes of magic, esoteric phenomena, mysticism, and extrasensory perception massively captured the minds of citizens. But this was all basically not allowed in the Soviet Union, the atheist, Marxist, Leninist country, and you couldn't really talk about it to the extent you could try to find out information, as I did about UFOs and so forth. So the information about the overseas guests, those creatures, fell on the fertile ground in Russia. In the 2000s, those years, a mysterious creature appeared in Ukraine, after which the creature moved to Russia. All eyewitness accounts were identical. In all cases, the mystical animal sneaks into the village, then bleeds sheep, chickens, and then silently disappears. Neither the boats, nor the guards, nor the fighting dogs are able to stop this goat vampire. A different kind of evidence is made by hunters who find identical skeletons all over the world, and also encounter whole families of mysterious predators living in forests that do not touch people as yet. The Russian version or account of the Chupacabra, judging by reports and available evidence, looks a little bit different, looks somewhat different from the American ones. The same size, but the fur is completely absent, long paws and burning eyes. Only in Russia, there was a case when this monster was able to take control of a person and hypnotize him until he disappeared from the pursuit in a dense forest. Very interesting. So it turns out that the Russian Chupacabra has hypnosis and uses it when there is a real danger to its existence or well-being. The domestic subspecies of the Chupacabra is considered smaller than the American counterparts. Apparently, the severity of the Russian climate has an effect on the creature. It's about the size of a fox or a medium-sized dog. The muzzle is canine. The body is disproportionate, covered with hair. There are various shades from gray to reddish. It attacks small pets, but the man, for the Chupacabra, the man is most likely too tough to handle. According to eyewitnesses, it was possible to make an approximate portrait of this night vampire, the goat eater, and so forth. But these animals are strikingly different from each other depending on their habitats. Mankind has been asking this question for 60 years. Most often people tend to believe that these are wolves and foxes mutated after the accidents at nuclear power plants. In the 1950s, there were many cases of chemical emissions into the atmosphere. Ural Mountains, for example, 1957. The hypothesis is supported by the fact that no one has ever seen this animal before, unless we hear the story from 1941. An interesting hypothesis about the mystical origin of the bloodthirsty beast is this one. In North America, after the Chupacabra raids, people clearly felt the smell of sulfur in outbuildings for a long time. And one person even saw how this creature howled with ultrasound and disappeared before his eyes. Biologists are inclined to believe that this animal could have turned out to be due to a normal mutation. But what kind of animal could mutate and breed all over the planet like this? Judging by its actions, we can safely say that it has a mind and thinks pretty quickly. And later in this video, again, I'll bring the information from 1940s regarding what I believe to be similar creatures, or maybe different. In 2004, the appearance of a mysterious beast was recorded in Russia. The skeletons of the animals found in the forest resembled those of the dogs, but upon closer examination, many differences were noticed. Photos of the remains have long stirred the minds of the Russian people. Well, people could not believe that a creepy monster could move to another continent and open the hunting season here. However, after 7 years, solid evidence began to appear. Let's look at the reports of Chupacabra in the Rostov region of Russia. In the city of Volgodonsk, a local farmer caught a mysterious beast red-handed. When he opened the door to the chicken coop in the morning, he saw that the whole floor was covered with dead chicken carcasses, and in the corner sat the culprit of the bloody celebration and calmly sucked the blood from the next victim. The man described it as a bold dog with powerful paws. The pensioner or retired man did not lose his head and hit the uninvited guest with a shovel. The man described it as a bulldog with powerful paws, like I said. So the animal had a good reaction and instantly rushed at the man after being hit with a shovel. Fortunately, he only got a piece of the trousers, since the farmer was wearing tough variety of Russian boots, kirzovые сапоги. Naturally, the animal disappeared, but the owner, he was sure that he will see this animal in his backyard, as are his neighbors, more than once. Now, in Bashkiria of the Russian Federation, there was this incident, but let me tell you, the Republic of Bashkortostan is a republic in Russia located between the Volga and the Ural Mountains in Eastern Europe. It was here that the Chupacabra appeared several times within a short period of time. In the village of Nizhny Atashevo, a resident lost all her chickens due to the fault of this night hunter. The most shocking thing was that the beast gnawed through the metal grate and thick boards. No forest predator would be able to break the steel mesh with the help of teeth. The carcasses still had the same 2 holes on the neck and the absence of blood at the scene of the massacre. Most likely it was a cub, so it was not afraid of the noise of the machine. However, the speed movement of this animal can be envied. In Nizhny Novgorod, Russian city, there was another incident. The Novgorodians also survived the raids of this monster several times. The bloodless corpses of chickens and rabbits have been regularly found in one of the villages for many months. This time, the residents were talking about an upright, bold creature. It runs away from its pursuers with powerful leaps and has unusually strong hind legs. It is with their paws that they knock out doors and sheds and chicken coops. In the fall of the year 2010, the Nizhny Novgorod region of Russia was stirred up by rumors about the appearance of the bloodsucker. Then the hunt for the Nizhny Novgorod Chupacabra was announced. The mysterious beast very cleverly bypassed all the traps and killed dozens of chickens overnight. Locals insisted that the animal looked like a kangaroo and a wolf at the same time. Well, at that time, the Nizhny Novgorod Chupacabra could not be killed or caught. It is so careful that it simply didn't give humans this opportunity. On February 6, 2011, the program Nizhny Novgorod region, Hunting for a Chupacabra, became interested in this phenomenon. So the NTV, it was a television program, crew was sent to the Nizhny Novgorod region for filming. Residents of the Viksa district were very excited and scared. They were sure that the Chupacabra appeared in the summer of 2010, when unknown scary creature began attacking pets and poultry at night, sucking blood out of them. How to behave when encountering Chupacabra in Russia is the advice from the investigators of this phenomenon. If you encounter this creature far from the city and locality, then you should not make sudden movements. In no case should you run away or scream. Stand still and don't look it in the eye. Take slow steps back as soon as it loses interest in you. Do not try to lure it. You can make it angry and it will feed on your blood. If you have a weapon in your hands, you do not try to shoot. If this creature knows how to take control of a person's mind, then it is unknown who else you will shoot. Some interesting facts from the same experts. After meeting with the Chupacabra, a resident of the Tula region in Russia could not speak for 5 days. It is noticed that the activity of the beast depends on the phases of the moon. In the winter time, the creature appears many times less often. The woolless Chupacabra is much more aggressive than its woolly counterpart, the one that has wool in it. A real Chupacabra is not afraid of a human being. It makes strange whistle while hunting, and it exhibits big jumps. Now, reports of the beast from the Ulyanovsk region. Reports of the Chupacabra still appeared in various regions of the country at that time. For several years in a row, they originated in the Ulyanovsk region in the 21st century. Here, according to the eyewitnesses, the creature operated in one or another area. Ulyanovsk, known until 1924 as Simbirsk, is a city and the administrative center of Ulyanovsk Oblast, Russia, located on the Volga River, 705 kilometers from Moscow. The reason for the panic was again the mass death of pets. In the Ulyanovsk region, they turned out to be rabbits, geese, and chickens. Some residents, of course, did not believe in mystical hypotheses. After all, foxes, ferrets, wolves, and stray dogs could attack farmsteads. This really happens here. But even skeptics were surprised by the reaction of experts who could not convincingly explain the reasons for the mass death of pets. About 100 heads were strangled. Professionals from the State Regional Veterinary Laboratory seized the carcasses and subjected them to research. Neither avian flu nor rabies tests have been confirmed. According to the blood that was drawn, no one was able to put forward a convenient account either. In addition, once a Chupacabra was seen here literally on the spot of the massacre of animals. A man who worked for an entrepreneur, local businessman, was awakened by frantic barking of a dog. Going out into the yard, he found a wild picture, the corpses of rabbits at the open cages. The corpse of a goat was also lying nearby. There was a rustle behind him, noise. Looking back, the witness managed to notice how something shaggy jumped over the fence. I must say that the residents of the Ulyanovsk region, like other Russians, sometimes brave people to the point of being reckless. There is evidence that Chupacabras received a punch in the face from the angry farmers, after which they ran away. The local Russians also chased dangerous creatures on motorcycles. They were trying to fight predators with the help of traps, luring with fresh meat and holy water. But it has not been possible to catch a single creature yet. Now, apparently, if they confirm it, it would be possible to prove that the Chupacabra brought its offspring to the Volga region. In the spring of 2018, the Chupacabra was noted again in the Syzran district of the Samara region. Interestingly, this territory borders on the Novospassky district of the Ulyanovsk region, from where there were also similar reports not so long ago, considering the time. The evidence is still the same. A large-sized creature can jump as it usually moves, growls, attacks pets. A black and gray animal with short front and long hind legs, red eyes, according to eyewitnesses, visited one of the villages more than once. People have seen two Chupacabras there. They grazed by the dumpsters, bent them. The elongated snouts of the creatures and in something like a pig snout. Footprints with marks from huge claws. According to people who understand, these tracks are not like those left by other animals. Recently, similar to them, but much smaller, began to appear next to the incomprehensible large footprints. Residents made the assumption that the Chupacabra brought offspring with it. This did not add optimism to the villagers. Strangled rabbits, a scalped cat, and an injured dog are the visible results of the Chupacabra activity. Some residents, however, do not believe in mystical beasts, but they say it would be dogs or wolves that are at fault. But others are armed with bottles of vinegar, stun guns, sticks, and try never to walk near the edge of the forest. And now on to Pskov, Russia, in the year 2020. There was an unusual creature that was discovered. What kind of an beast was this? A fox, a mutant, or someone else? Local reporters from the Sebesh newspaper Priziv first told about the Chupacabra on Friday, September 4. Naturally, they seized and contacted the author of the photographs, Tatiana Ivanova, on whose farmstead in the village of Mostische of the Sebesh district a terrible fight took place. Tatiana Ivanovna worked all her life as a zoo technician at the Pobeda State Farm, and in 2020 she had her own farm with only 11 cows, not to mention other livestock. She had seen all kinds of animals in her time around animal husbandry, and but she never encountered such horror. Tatiana Ivanovna confessed to the reporter in a conversation on the phone on September 7. Everything happened in the afternoon. She just put ashes in the chicken coop for bathing and sat down in the yard to rest. Her brother lives in the next house. He was the first to be alert. The chickens are clucking a lot, he shouted to Tatiana Ivanovna Ivanova. And she was not in a hurry. Maybe they cackle with pleasure or share something, she responded. And when she got there, dear me, several birds are already dead lying around, and some kind of creature jumped out of the window to the window from her. Tatiana Ivanovna tried to drive the creature away with a scraper, such an iron tool for cleaning, like a shovel. So the creature almost bit her. Then Tatiana Ivanovna hurried to lock all the doors to the chicken coop and rushed for help. She screamed so much. Her brother came running first. Together with Igor, they drove this beast into the barn. Igor somehow managed to pin it down with a scraper in the corner and hit it on the head with a butt. Well, there was an axe at hand, and Tatiana Ivanovna just shouted to Igor, her brother, to be careful. God forbid that the creature would bite it. The monster turned out to be completely bald, fanged, with long skinny tail and long legs. At the same time, it smelled disgusting. The beast did not look like any familiar animals, wolves, dogs, or foxes. The first thing that came to mind that it was a Chupacabra. Tatiana Ivanovna immediately called Elena Yurievna, who worked at the Sebesh veterinary station. She gave Tatiana Ivanovna a clear instruction. The corpse should be brought to their laboratory, the chicken coop should be processed, and the dead chickens should be burned. Tatiana Ivanovna did just that. She armed herself with rubber gloves and rolled up the smelly Chupacabra in 5 bags. 5 laying hens and 2 roosters fell victim to the bold beast. The hostess found Tatiana Ivanovna found another bird on the 3rd day behind the house when she was mowing the grass. The chicken's spine was broken. Her chickens are not simple. They are elite breeds. Just one chicken cost 700 rubles, and she had to destroy the eggs. Tatiana Ivanovna was very upset when speaking to the reporters. And the day before, an owl flew in. 2 chickens were dragged away. Some kind of an attack, so she was losing her profits. Tatiana Ivanovna said that there were 2 such eerily strange animals in the vicinity. For 2 weeks, people observed them in the vicinity of the bridge of the area, even managed to photograph one. They were also seen near the former village of Tomsino. Now, the Ivanov family managed to get rid of the smaller female, as we already know. But the larger animal, either the mother or the male, stayed somewhere to wander, Tatiana Ivanovna told the reporters. God forbid it would come again. She would not survive such fear anymore. Here, she was waiting for the results of the examination. The corpse, as local veterinarians told her, was taken to Pskov. Meanwhile, a real discussion took place under the photos of the slain beast on the Tatiana Ivanovna Vkontakte social network page. Who is this creature? And by the way, Vkontakte is something like Facebook that they use in Russia. So, opinions were divided as to who the creature was. Half were sure that this mutant was Chupacabra, and the rest of the experts, so to say, were inclined to believe that it was a huge fox. Alexei Shpakov, a local resident, reported that he had seen the same mangy creature not so long ago in the vicinity of the village of Tamsino. The reporter sent 2 photographs, one of which showed the creature being photographed while hunting chickens, to professional hunters. But this did not add clarity. The opinion of the experts was also divided. It's not a fox at all. Sergei Ivanov, the former head of the Pskov hunting department with more than 40 years of hunting experience, categorically stated. Having carefully examined all the photos, he added knowingly, there are jaws like a bull terrier. The fox does not have such highly developed and powerful ones. Sergei Yurevich drew special attention. The tail and the legs are too long for a fox, too. The fox's paws are shorter. It is unequivocal that this is not a wolf or a dog in any case. He doesn't know such breeds. But it looks very much like a Chupacabra killed in America, which was shown on TV. The following opinion is that of the Sibesh hunter Boris Kuzmin, who is also a seasoned and experienced person. This is a fox, definitely, Boris Potapovich is sure. It has a severe form of scabies, a tick that eats all the wool. It is impossible to touch. The disease is contagious to humans. According to the rules of veterinary medicine, the carcass must be buried or burned. At the same time, Boris Potapovich noticed that mature foxes, just the size of the Mastician specimen, can actually have strong jaws. For comparison, Boris Potapovich sent a photo of a young, healthy fox he killed. The reporter tried to find out who this strange beast was by contacting the veterinarians of the Sibesh and Pskov, but she didn't get a concrete answer from either. The doctors reported that at the moment the biomaterial of the animal was being checked, which one they did not specify, and the results would be reported directly to the applicant, that is, to Tatiana Ivanovna herself. Well, the results were not ready yet, so it's too early to say whether the animal was sick with rabies or not, the Pskov Regional Veterinary Laboratory reported. Years have gone by, I haven't heard about any results. Anyway, and as far for the appearance of the Chupacabra in Pskov region, a blood-sucking bold beast similar to a wolf, well, the readers of the Courier newspaper told about the misdeeds or crimes of such creatures back in 2012. It was the issue number 47, August 20th. The article was called "A Vampire Chupacabra Prowls in the Pskov Region." When the owners of the local farms found the corpses of completely drained rabbits on the farmsteads of the Dachne villages of the Dnovsky and the Cherniakovitsky Pskov districts, they also found cats. Pskov, by the way, is a city in northwestern Russia and the administrative center of Pskov Oblast region, located about 20 kilometers east of the Estonian border on the Velikaya River. Pskov is one of the oldest cities in Russia. It served as the capital of the Pskov Republic, by the way, and was a trading post of the Hanseatic League before it came under the control of the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Exactly the same situation happened in 2013. Issue number 34, did a Chupacabra appear in Palkino, was the article. There, the owners also found broken cages and bloodless rabbits and chickens in the morning. The local hunters were sure that this was the work of a chupacabra, an unknown animal with the habits of either a dog or a kangaroo and claws like a bear. They even promised to hunt down the treacherous animals, but apparently it didn't work out or something went wrong. However, scientists and hunters were skeptical about this account. This was from the Courier newspaper in the Pskov region. Now, not everything is so, should I say, less gloomy than what I'm about to tell you. The story I'm about to tell is from the books of Bushkov, who in the 1980s had the opportunity to interview Soviet military intelligence experts, as well as the KGB officers, who had participated in the World War II and had encountered some very unusual, most likely, of course, paranormal phenomena. 4 years they were under military oath and other orders not to reveal what they had observed, engaged in, and so forth. Well, some talked to the Russian writer and told him of their experiences, including this one. From the interrogation of Nazi German war prisoners. It had to do with a moonlit night after a battle. The German who talked was very young. He served as a private in the infantry. He was drafted in 1940. All this happened in the summer of 1941, the summer that Nazi Germany invaded USSR. There was fighting that the German private was engaged in. On the one hand, it was to be a real fight. On the other hand, it was a complete mess, not prescribed by any military regulations. The situation simply did not have exact military name. Some Russian unit was breaking out from the Nazi encirclement to make way to the Soviet troops. There were several light tanks, several trucks with soldiers. They suddenly appeared at the location of the division, of the German division. They stumbled upon the German company and struck from the rear. Then the German private found out that some of them still broke through, but that was later. He was very lucky. The bullet caught on a curve, as it turned out later, slipped on his head, tore off a fair piece of skin, stunned, but that nothing more. And the German private was also lucky that he was at the edge of the forest. And when he fell unconscious, the Russian light tanks rushed to the side, so he wasn't crushed. The German orderlies did not pick him up right away. As he explained, there was some kind of confusion. They did not immediately find out about the location of the private's company. The commander was killed among the first. He only managed to place the soldiers to rest in that clearing and did not have time to inform his superiors about their deployment. The orderlies took away the wounded and left the private among the dead. They decided he thinks that he was dead too. The private had dried blood all over his head, so anyone could make that mistake. He woke up in the dead of the night. He moved, touched his head. It hurt like hell, but it was clear that the blood was no longer flowing, that apart from the head, there were no more wounds. However, a lot of blood did come out. He couldn't move from weakness. He was shivering. So the German wanted to shout, to call someone. The Nazi troops were probably not particularly far away. They knew that the division had received orders to stay in that area for the time being. And then all the sounds stuck in his throat. You see, the night was clear, cloudless. There was a full moon, huge, yellowish. Slightly rising, he saw a clearing. 100 meters away from him was a Russian truck, somehow absurdly tilted. Apparently, they shot the cabin with a machine gun. Germans killed the driver, and the truck crashed into a tree, and then it was slightly thrown away by the impact. The dead lay everywhere, Germans and Russians. No one moved, moaned, or called out. And then this ones jumped on the dead and frolicked. The German private did not know who they were. Nothing from the classic look of a devil with a tail and hooves. But these creatures did not look like animals known to science. They were not so big, about the size of a cat, very lean, thin, surprisingly agile and nimble. Do you know what the strangest thing is? He asked the interrogator. The moon was shining brightly, but he could not see them and all the details. They seemed like silhouettes. Such flexible, nimble, agile silhouettes. There were many, many of them. The private did not see any tails or horns. Thin, long, surprisingly agile creatures. They were frolicking. That would probably be the best accurate word. They played like children, jumping from one corpse to corpse, chasing each other. The whole point, it can be seen at once, was to jump from one dead body to another without touching the ground. Somehow they screamed at the same time. They grunted. And it was all extremely disgusting themselves, their squeaks and grunts, their carefree games, their very appearance. He can't really explain it, but they gave off disgust, like a bad smell coming from a tramp. A big clearing littered with corpses. The moon was shining brightly, and these games of theirs were disgusting. For them, the dead were fun. He asked the interrogator, do you understand? They liked it all, that there were dead people lying around, that there were a lot of them dead people, that there was death everywhere. The German didn't know what he was seeing, and even now he had no idea what he saw. But he was absolutely sure of one thing. Whoever these creatures are, they are deeply hostile to the human race and all human moral principles. What we live by simply did not exist for them. He can swear by anything that he didn't see it in a dream or a delirium. They were real, and they were profoundly bad. Was he a believer then? No. He was young, and they were brought up without much emphasis on church values. The German private lay there and watched. On these games of theirs, jumping from corpse to corpse on the haste, black, lean, thin silhouettes. They were jumping, some seemed to be dancing, and these were very strange dances again, which had nothing to do with human dances. They squeaked, grunted, and squealed, not a single articulate word, but nevertheless, from somewhere he had a firm conviction that these creatures have some kind of intelligence. And then only, he didn't know how much time has passed, he got scared. It's just incredibly scary. The German imagined that they would now notice that he was alive. He did not know what would have happened then, but then at the very thought that they would see him now, the hair on his head moved. He fumbled around, came across a machine gun. The German private felt a little more confident. It was a weapon. Weapons always give a person confidence, even in such a situation. Cautiously he pulled the machine gun to himself by the belt. The magazine should have been full. He never had time to shoot when the Russians appeared. The German private's head was spinning. His whole body felt like cotton wool, but he still slightly lifted the machine gun, rested its magazine on the ground, pulled the trigger, and fired a long round in their direction. He could not have aimed. He was shooting at random right above the ground. The machine gun jumped, almost fell out of his hand. He barely held it. And everything was gone. They all disappeared in an instant. One moment there were several dozens of them, and the next moment there were none. Only the moon, the clearing, and the corpses. No stirring. While Nazi troops appeared very quickly, a mobile infirmary was set up just half a kilometer behind the forest. They heard gunshots there, and one of the officers sent soldiers to investigate the area. They approached the private cautiously, but he shouted, and they picked him up very quickly, took him to the infirmary. He didn't tell anyone the details of what he saw. They would hardly have believed him. But the private knew for sure that he saw these creatures. They were actually doing their disgusting dances there. They were playing with the corpses. Whoever they were evil spirits. He told the Soviet interrogator that if he was in the German's place, the Russian would have come to exactly the same conclusions. No, nothing like this has ever happened to that German again. Just once, just this once. Were those creatures the Chupacabra of the later fame? Who knows? Thank you for your attention to my work, and if you can support my research, you'll find the links in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel and please tell others, and I'll bring you more stories of the paranormal from the taiga and the steppes and the savannas and the mountains and the seas and lakes of Eurasia, China, Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and other places of the world. Thank you.